So this is the Wildflower Bee Farm Report, and this is Saturday, March 28th, 2020. The bees are all gone. What do I do now? So I wanted to do this podcast, sort of this update this way I know it's a talking head thing, and sorry about that, but it's pouring rain outside, so no sense in walking around, but I wanted to update you on what happened this week. And so the question is, if all the hives are gone, what do we do now? I had four hives. Two were original and two I had made from the existing two, or split, as they say. And let me take a step back, and when this happens, when you lose all your hives, you kind of wonder, okay, what did I do to contribute to this problem? So let me go through the list of things that I actually was in on Tuesday and took them apart. And I've got a microscope and so on, so tried to understand what happened, and here's what I believe. So I started the year 2019 as a conventional beekeeper, was intending on treating my bees for mites and doing all the things we do, looking at them every 2 weeks, opening them up. And the more I learned about that, I thought, and the more we started moving towards establishing a wildflower bee farm, I realized that really the goal is to help them, not necessarily keep them, which is what I talk about on the Wildflower Bee Farm website. So the goal was, how do you help your bees? So what I had in about mid-season, probably around midsummer, I began to see more and more information from scientists about if you treat your bees, even with a solution called formic acid, which has various trade names, but formic acid is really something that you find in the sting or the bite of ants. Red ants have it. It's more of a natural substance. It has no resistance, so although you can kill mites with it who are on bees and not hurt the bees initially, it doesn't get absorbed in the wax or the honey. It just absorbs and is gone. And it's a natural occurring event in nature, but not at the concentrations you use in a beehive. So my fear was, if I use formic acid in the fall or late summer, and sometimes there's some evidence of queens becoming less active or healthy, and the queen dies, then I've killed the hive intentionally. And so the debate was, well, as I move to helping bees, perhaps it's a good idea to not treat the bees, as some of them had been treated majority in the spring, that it's probably a better chance they'll survive. So as you know, on the site, I posted pictures until very recently. They seemed to be thriving, and then they all perished. I also, and I have to, so I stopped. I didn't treat them for mites this past summer, late summer, sorry. So what that did, and I look at it now and I say, okay, it's like taking someone who's taken antibiotics all their life. They've always been on this medication, whatever it may be, or this help you're providing. And all of a sudden it's no longer available. And they get tacked, because right around them are threats all the time with varroa mites. What I did really was set them up for failure, because I should have tried to take almost a detox approach, where maybe I would treat them with a bit less of it, or treat them again in the fall and then get them healthy with the environment, and wait until they continue to thrive in the environment, and then start looking at this as a later sort of intervention, not a first case one. So that was my mistake, not treating them. And I would have used, there's another substance which I purchased, which is really the herb thyme, Thyme. It's a version of that which you can use, but it does get absorbed in the wax and in the honey. And I'm not sure how healthy that is compared to the formic acid, which I think I'm going to use a little bit of on the new hives that will be coming in. The second mistake I made, which I think, well, actually, the next mistake is more than just a couple. I decided to give them 3 supers to overwinter. Now, a super is a box of 10 frames, either a deep, which is a fairly large frame, or a medium, which is smaller. And generally, bees need some people winter their bees in one box, so 10 frames in period. I've had some success with 10 plus above it a medium box, so 10 large and 10 smaller frames. But this year I thought, well, more is better, so I'll give them 3 boxes and let them keep all that honey, which I found out on Tuesday. They all had incredible amounts of honey. It wasn't about the honey. There is some belief, though, that when you do that, you give bees too large of space to keep warm and protect themselves and all of that, and just to manage. It's just too big. It's too large a cavity. I'm not sure about that, but I do know that one of the hives I lost was because of moisture. I had a nuclear split that I had put 3 boxes. So there was 3 total boxes, and there wasn't enough ventilation. That was obvious. I could tell by what happened in the hive. So lack of ventilation in the 3. So I'm going to go back to the 2, which I've had before, where you have the first set of 10 frames, and then you have a smaller set above for storage of food, and keep it constant for them. I think it's too confusing when you start increasing and decreasing the size of their house. It's like if you woke up one morning and all of a sudden you had another 2 rooms onto your house, an addition, and you go, where'd this come from? And then as it got cold outside, someone maybe took it away from you. So I think consistency is important, and I think by giving them the 3 boxes, I kind of assisted in their demise. Another important issue had to do with the health of the hive, and with mites. What ends up happening is the mites don't kill the bees. The bees get sick, or they're not as viral to handle problems. And I believe I had 2 queen failures, which means the queens didn't make it before the bees. And I think that the reason for that is probably multidimensional. Again, my fault. At the beginning of the year, I had 4 hives, so I had 3 of them very close together. Now, the reason beekeepers do that often is because they're easier to manage. You don't have to drive around looking for one hive. But in nature, bees generally are on their own. So they form a hive in an old log, or they live in an old log, and they generally have some space. They don't necessarily, another hive doesn't swarm and live right beside them. So if any hive that I had a disease, it would be easier to spread to the other hives. The other important issue was that the hives were generally within feet of a cornfield. So they were back away from a cornfield, but they were nevertheless very close to a cornfield where conventional farming practices occurred. So spraying of Roundup and other types of things, and it alone did not cause the problem, but I think added to their lack of strength to be able to manage whatever they were facing. So it takes about a day or 2 for me when I lose a hive. I had a podcast earlier about that. But when you lose a hive, it's emotional, and so it took me a couple of days to sort of get back, and then I started thinking, okay, what are we going to do next? So I contacted the folks that are going to provide me with bees in May. I had already purchased bees, and these are winterized bees in Ontario that have already spent a winter here, or they have survived a winter here, and they're thriving. And I've ordered those hives to come in, and they'll be in May. And so I talked to them, and I was told that conventional beekeepers, not bee helpers as I am, but beekeepers also had significant losses this past year. And I'm interested. I haven't been told, why yet. I don't think it's cold, because we did not have such a cold winter. But when I find out, I'll post it on future podcasts or blogs here. So I'm kind of getting excited again about the bees coming. It's kind of a quiet place because I have no place to check, no blogs to send you about the bees themselves. I can tell you there's a significant amount of honey that the new bees will be getting when they come, so they'll have a good start. And we will disperse them throughout the farm. So here's what we're going to do differently. Because the farm will be no longer farmed conventionally, there won't be any issues of spraying or anything around them, which is great. But we'll also be distributing our beehives. The maximum hives we'll have within walking distance, very close distance, would be 2, probably 1 in most instances. So we may put 2 by a pond, but they'll be quite far apart, or in the bush, but they'll be quite far apart. We'll also have some of the log hives in a tree. Hopefully we'll catch some swarms, and we'll be doing I'm going to go to a very different way to help the bees, in that we're going to keep the size of their home constant. So 2 supers, or 2 boxes, or 20 frames will be the maximum. And we're going to look at how to keep them healthy and stable. In the late summer, I will look at the natural treatment for varroa mites, at least to help them get through that first winter. And as they get stronger and stronger, we will also have a small segment of hives that we will not treat, but we know the risks of them surviving are going to be challenging. But we will do that too. I will split some hives, which we will. The hives that I split will not necessarily get the treatment. We'll be doing ongoing research and data gathering. Again, our goal is to, over time, and I've set a 5-year plan for this, to have bees that are able to survive and thrive with some minimal intervention. We may find out that treating them with this natural, acid that's in nature might be helpful for a period of time until we can get them to be able to, fight off the mites on their own. Because the problem with using, the other thing I didn't mention, the problem with using formic acid is that you not only kill the mites that are on the bees, and that's helpful, but you kill all the beneficial mites in a hive. So the dilemma then is, do I do that? Do I use that to make sure the bees survive the winter, or do I take a chance and try to see if they can overcome this with their own strength themselves to be able to not need that kind of treatment on a regular basis? So again, we're about helping the bees, not keeping them. A great deal of these losses are my mistake, and I need to learn from that. But I think one of the encouraging things that happened this week, and I'll end on a positive note, I did get a call with the experts on the natural grass and wildflower planting and clover, and we're all set to go. They tell me 3 to 4 weeks they'll be here, and they've been able to social distance and have techniques to be able to plant regardless. So they're going to come in and plant the entire farm, and we're excited about that. I've had some contact with the folks in Dresden about my bees, and they say that May 30th, we're scheduled to have them come in, but depending on health and the type of season, we may get them earlier. We'll be ordering a few extra hives given our losses, and the goal will be that we'll probably start the season, if you count May when they all arrive, with 500,000 bees. And hopefully we'll be able to help them by providing them with a great environment and peace by doing no harm. And then we'll be able to continue to grow this. And so what I'll be doing is posting. Probably the next post will be as we get close to planting the farm, and I'll do a lot of videos on planting the farm. I'm going to do a farm tour next week, so I'll take you around with my camera and show you where we plan on putting the bees and the environment there. We're also busy with security. We'll have videos everywhere, video cameras, and being able to make sure our bees are safe and people don't, hurt the bees or the environment. Because it's really important that you understand this is a sort of a balancing act. We have a bush that has turkeys and deer and all kinds of wild animals, and we want to make sure everyone's sort of working together and they don't need humans around. We were walking the other day, and I did find some shotgun shells that were dispensed. It looked like a year ago, but I'm not sure. So as with the new trespassing laws, we'll be really monitoring our bush and our farm and our fields so that the bees are safe and people don't trespass. If you want to see what we're doing, don't come to the farm. Just go online and watch the videos, because we'll keep you informed. Have a great day. I'm Henry from the Wildflower Bee Farm, and I'll probably be posting again next week on a tour of the farm. Have an amazing, safe day.